So when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, probably the biggest thing going on at the moment is where this team is actually going to start playing their hockey. Because we know the Vancouver Canucks, they're in Vancouver, and they play at Rogers Arena, which is beside BC Place, and it's at the very south part of downtown. That's Vancouver, BC, and that's the Vancouver Canucks home that we all kind of know. It's in the name. But we don't really know if that's actually going to happen this season so far because, hey, the NHL has proposed a whole bunch of plans to actually have teams playing games in their home arenas without fans. The Canadian division was already confirmed, and it's something that I didn't really think was like brain-shattering news, like, oh, they made the Canadian division, I'm so surprised. Like, it's kind of why we didn't make a video about it, because, like, I already spoke about this a whole bunch. So in my head, I was like, you know, if you want to see videos about the Canadian division, just go to the other ones. They're already there. But the Canadian division is indeed going to be a thing. Canada, borders, USA, not really the best right now. So Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, Winnipeg are all going to be playing against each other only until the Stanley Cup semifinals, I guess. Yes, the conference finals is where we will actually have cross-border playing. But for the Vancouver Canucks, they're one of a handful of NHL teams who at the moment might not actually be granted access towards playing their own games in their own home arena. But before we go over that, I want to thank all of you who commented in the previous Vancouver Canucks video, New Zealand, because hey, it was a weird transition, but it works. So stick around to the end of this video if you want a chance at getting the keywords right towards potentially being featured in the next one. So without further ado, let's go over onto the Vancouver Canucks, because when we last spoke about the Canucks and the BC government, we had a proposal that the Canucks actually had for returning Canucks players to group quarantine. It was an idea that said, okay, the Canucks would actually be allowed to quarantine together the guys from Europe and America, and they would actually be granted access to practicing in Rogers Arena with special permission because they're athletes. There was an idea going around, okay, we'll collect all these guys, they're going to be allowed to go to Rogers, they'll only go there. They'll do their practices, then they'll go back into solitude. The only two places they would be allowed to be are the rink and the rooms. And Jim Benning came out recently and talked about how the BC government straight up was like, no, you're not going to be allowed to do that. Come on, bro. Like, the protocol applies to everybody. You're coming in here over the border, 2 weeks quarantine, no questions asked. What do you mean going to Rogers Arena and practicing? No special treatment given out here. But because there is still a whole bunch of stuff going on with the Vancouver Canucks and how exactly games are going to be played at Rogers Arena when the Canucks are the home team in the return-to-play 56-game format, there indeed are still some pretty big obstacles here. Because if you take a look at what we had earlier when the 2021 season was being finalized, we spoke about how most of the Canadian provinces were like, okay, yeah, go, let's do it. Let's do it. We're in agreement, guys. Let's get this done, put the protocols in place, we'll have a season. And BC was like, okay, slow down. And that was an issue at the time. Because BC, out of all of the Canadian provinces, was being the most stubborn in terms of allowing new rules to be put in place for players to be going in and out of the province and playing hockey games. Which, you know, it's totally their right, the BC government's right, to be cautious, but it was a situation where they were the only ones who were cautious. So, if you go over what exactly has been said recently about the Vancouver Canucks, let's take a look at this. Here's an update from David Pagnotta yesterday. If 4 out of 5 provinces agree to the NHL's plan, but BC health officials cannot align on the protocols to allow Canadian teams to travel in or out of Vancouver, a league source confirms that the Canucks could play in another Canadian city to start the season to maintain an all-Canadian division. As I tweeted last night, the NHL will continue discussions with all provinces this coming week, and the obvious priority is to have the Canucks playing in Vancouver, but all options will be weighed. So there you go. We have the possibility now arising that the Vancouver Canucks might just have to play their game somewhere else. Now in the thumbnail I have the Saddle Dome because I thought it would just be really funny to have a Calgary Canucks reunion, having Jacob Markstrom, Chris Tanev, Bo Horvat, JT Miller, and all these other guys sharing the same locker room as technically their home locker room. Obviously it wouldn't be like that when the Canucks and the Flames play each other, but I thought it would be funny to throw that in there. We have ourselves a few other tweets over here. This is what Friedman said on Sportsnet's Hockey Central earlier yesterday as well. I think the Canucks players have been warned about a possibility that they could be playing in Edmonton to start the year. Either a road trip or a temporary home base is Edmonton. Also, there's the possibility of a hub. The only team that cannot start their camp at home is Montreal, because they don't have approval at this point. So there's the contradiction right there. I put Calgary in the thumbnail because it's funny, but hey, we have Edmonton as a potential hub as well too. Now personally, I've never been to Edmonton, nor have I been to Calgary, but just from everything I've seen about people who have, I would probably assume Edmonton is more boring than Calgary if you were to actually go there. If you've been to both of these cities, which I'm pretty sure a big chunk of you have been, tell me in the comments what's more boring. I think Edmonton would be more boring, but I don't really know personally. But hey, the Calgary storyline's a lot more appealing to me, man, so I'm kind of thinking I'd prefer the Canucks to go to Calgary if it's not Vancouver, just because that would be really, really funny. But we have ourselves a few more tweets as to what exactly the BC Health Ministry's perspective is on the matter. Here's a tweet from Sportsnet 650 talking about the BC Health Ministry. Dr. Henry continues to work with the NHL and the other provinces involved to find a safe solution for the ongoing return-to-play discussions. They're trying to ensure the proposal aligns with the restrictions in place across all provinces, and this was released yesterday, so at the time of this video's uploading, who knows if there's actually an update. I'm recording this video the morning of the day, so there hasn't been anything yet at 12:12 a.m. December 21st, but then we have the Vancouver Canucks perspective too. This is what Ben Kuzma says, and honestly, this idea is something that I like the most. The Canucks haven't explored the possibility of relocation in any depth, because they remain committed to reaching a COVID safety protocol that satisfies everybody. Everybody is in the league. Everybody is in the BC Health Ministry. Everybody is in the team. Everybody is in their own hockey organization. So the Vancouver Canucks are really determined to actually get everything rolling, and even though they made proposals in the past that were rejected, like our group quarantine session where the players would be allowed to go to Rogers Arena, they still want to get this done. And at the end of the day, you never want to see your team giving up on something like this. Obviously, even if I'm saying I want them to go to Calgary, it's like I'd rather see them in Vancouver, of course. But with that being said, we have ourselves a few other ideas that I wanted to talk about in this video as well. We have ourselves the new taxi squad idea, because if you've been paying attention to the previous videos, you know what a taxi squad is. It's the group of players who are actually with the main NHL team, but who are being paid AHL salary, and they're not actually playing in the AHL, they're just being paid as if they were playing in the AHL. They practice with the NHL team, they tour around with the NHL team, but they don't actually play in the NHL until somebody gets deemed unfit to play, somebody gets injured, etc., and there's a spot open in the lineup. These players are the ones who are just there, just in case. They're the relief players, and this is what Patrick Johnson believes the Canucks taxi squad could likely be. Michael DiPietro, Nils Hoglander, Justin Bailey, Brogan Rafferty, Jack Rathbone, and Marc Michaelis. Maybe swap Tyler Grayovac in for Marc Michaelis, but given the chance for these guys to work directly with NHL staff, hey, I think Michaelis is more likely. Marc Michaelis, remember that? Yeah, he's the guy who was in our underrated prospects video. He's a guy fresh out of college. He is back into the Vancouver Canucks system. It wouldn't surprise me if at some point DiPietro does a lone stint with the Canadian AHL squad just to get some games in. I know the roster rules for taxi squad goalies are tricky, but they'll find a way. Speaking on that note, though, talking about these guys, we actually did have an earlier signing. The Canucks did sign Justin Bailey to a one-year, two-way contract earlier last week, and I didn't cover it because it wasn't really something that I could place into any of these videos, but now that we're on the subject of talking about Bailey as a potential taxi squad member, hey, this could be a nice opportunity to just say, hey, the guy signed a contract. So, out of these guys, when it comes to the players whom I would like to see the most, when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks and potential injuries, etc., I want to see that Hoglander in there, man. I want to see that Brogan Rafferty, that Jack Rathbone getting in here. Obviously, Marc Michaelis is an NCAA free agent who was honestly really good last year. So if there's an opportunity for a guy like this to prove himself and show off that he can be capable at the NHL level in the same way he was in college, then I wouldn't be surprised if this guy was given an opportunity instead or whatever. But, you know, there certainly are a whole bunch of options here. I'd love to see Hoglander maybe try to crack the team. I said this before in previous videos. I think he's good enough to at least make the league. But people who are saying, oh, this Hoglander guy's gonna be like Pedersen, man. Pedersen like impact. No, I'm sorry. I just don't think that is accurate. But, you know, I'd love to be proven wrong. Again, if any of these guys come in here and totally dominate the league, then be my guest. Same thing could be said about Jack Rathbone and Brogan Rafferty. I love these guys. I want to see these guys do well. Olli Juolevi isn't mentioned here as a taxi squad member because it's expected that he'll probably be good enough to at least be on the team, right? Who knows, though? There's no Jolin Chatfield mentioned here in this suggestion made by Patrick Johnson, so who knows how exactly things are going to go down. So talk to me in the comments what you think about the overall Vancouver Canucks idea of maybe playing in Edmonton, maybe playing somewhere else, Calgary, goodness gracious forbid. And also talk to me in the comments about the taxi squads in general. In fact, comment down below if you made it to the end of this video, Crazy Taxi, because that was a very fun video game that I'm pretty sure many of you played when you were younger. I personally have some very fond memories of playing Crazy Taxi, so tell me in the comments you made it to the end of this video by saying Crazy Taxi for a chance to be featured in the next Canucks video. Also talk to me about all the other Canucks stuff. I hope you enjoyed this. Rich 99, and bye.